And this is what's really interesting. You know, most people think of potatoes as something that would spike their blood sugar because they have a lot of carbohydrate. But when you cook and cool the potato, it won't have that effect because the resistant starch, you can't absorb and break that into glucose.
Whoa.
So
when you cool a potato, it's better for you.
Yeah. So that like a cold potato salad would actually not have the same effect on your blood sugar as eating a warm baked potato that you just cooked.
Wow. That's
In fact,
crazy.
Have you heard of the potato hack?
No.
This is probably the most effective diet that I've ever come across for weight loss. And this is what I use in my practice with patients when like nothing else has worked, or if someone's super motivated and just wants to make progress quickly. A guy named Tim Steele introduced me to this, and it was he has sent me some books that he found in the 1880s that reference this diet. So this is old school. And what you do is you basically eat nothing but potatoes, and they're plain potatoes, so you can roast them or boil them, but you don't, in the hardest core version, you don't even add salt. It's just plain baked potato or boiled potato. Certainly no butter, chives, sour cream, bacon, because that increases the reward value, as we were talking about earlier.
Right.
The more variety there is, the more rewarding a food is.
Okay.
So you just eat potatoes, and there are different variations or different ways of doing it. You can do it for maybe just 3 days a week, and then you can do your normal diet, the other 4 days a week. Tim talks about a variation called potatoes by day, which means you just eat potatoes for breakfast and for lunch, and then you eat a normal dinner. But in my clinic and from Tim's experience working with a lot of people, most people will lose an average of a half pound a day. And I think there are a few things happening here and why it works. Number one, it's totally playing towards these mechanisms that we talked about before. The reward value of food, which is called the hedonic system, that drives our food craving and preferences. And just let's do a thought experiment. If you have 2 plates of food, and on one plate you have a steamed potato with no salt or butter or fat of any kind, and on this plate on the right, you got a bag of potato chips or just a plate of potato chips. Which one are you going to eat less of? I mean, goes
Clearly.
without saying,
Yeah.
right? You're only going to eat the potato when you're hungry, and you're not going to eat probably a bite more than you're hungry for. Whereas the potato chips, all bets are off. For most people. And so what happens is when you do the potato diet, you get a spontaneous calorie reduction. And by spontaneous, I mean not voluntary. You're setting out to say, okay, I'm only going to eat 1,000 calories today. You're saying, I'm going to eat as many potatoes as I want to satiate my hunger. But just by definition, because of how our brain works, you're going to eat less than you would typically. So that's one thing. You get a reduction in calorie intake. The second thing is that when you cook the potato, most people, the way they do this diet is they'll just cook all the potatoes that they need for the week on Sunday to make it easy, so they don't have to cook the potato every time they sit down to eat. So they cook the potatoes and then they let them cool. And so then each time you can still heat them back up, but they now have a lot of resistant starch.
Even if you heat them back up?
Even if you heat them back up. And here's what's really cool about it. If you heat them up and cool them again, each cooling cycle forms more resistant starch. So that by the end of the week, if you're heating all of the potatoes back up and then cooling them again each time, you're going to have a potato that's mostly resistant starch, which means it will have zero impact on your blood sugar, and it will be like a feast for your beneficial gut microbiome.
Wow.
And that's another reason this diet probably works. You know all about the studies correlating disrupted gut microbiome with obesity and diabetes.
Yeah.
And so you're basically, the way I tell patients is you're basically going on an all-fiber diet.
And you got to eat the skin too.
You can eat the skin.
You should eat the skin, shouldn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Skin has vitamins in it, right?
So people will lose up to a half a pound, between a quarter and a half a pound a day that they're on the potato diet.
That's amazing.
So if let's say, you decide I want to lose 1.5 pounds a week, you do it for 3 days a week, and you do that for 6 months, then by the end of that 6-month period, you've lost a pretty significant amount of weight.
If you can keep that up.
If you can keep it up.
The blandness of it.
Yeah.
That's another fascinating aspect about diet is like how much of our life we're willing to forego health, happiness, all these different things just for some simple mouth pleasure for a few moments.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about a pizza that you would eat, how long are you going to eat it for? 20 minutes? 20 minutes out of a 24-hour day, and you're going to feel like shit for at least an hour or two afterwards. You know, if you try to do anything like physical, it's going to be more than 2 hours before you can. If you really want to go to the gym or you want to go for a run,
And look, I'm not saying I think everyone should do this. I think food should be pleasurable. And I think, the way I eat, for example, I love the foods that I eat. It's, this is why I say I don't suggest that anyone should start here. But I think it's interesting because it gets at some of what we've already been talking about, why the modern food environment contributes to obesity and how using that knowledge and understanding of what triggers, us to eat, we can turn that around and use it in our favor. So another strategy that's similar is to just eat, but not quite as extreme, is to just eat the same thing for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for like 2 or 3 days in a week. So
you get bored with it that way?
Exactly.